Now you're all in big, big trouble.
Have you ever wondered, wait, was that real? While watching an entertaining film? Some of the craziest, best, and worst scenes you've ever seen weren't made up.
I hate you! I hate you! Stop smiling!
They really happened. From real fights to shocking pranks and crashes that no one could have seen coming.
Excuse me.
In English.
How many fucking keys? You cocksucker, what the f***?
These scenes show that movies can be just as unpredictable as real life. Stay with me, because I'm about to tell you the crazy truth about what's really going on behind the scenes. When reality hijacked the scene. It was just going to be another picture of a busy street in New York. As part of Midnight Cowboy, Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight walked through the chaos of Midtown while the team stayed out of sight. What happened next, though, wasn't in any plot. A yellow cab that didn't know they were being filmed sped into the shot and almost hit Hoffman. Everyone stopped moving for a split second. Hoffman then slammed his hand on the hood, looked at the driver, and yelled what would become one of the most famous lines in movie history.
Hey! I'm walking here! I'm walking here! Up yours, you son of a bitch! You don't talk to me that way! Get out of here!
He always stayed true to himself and never skipped a beat. That wasn't acting. It was pure feeling, which wasn't planned. Later, even Jon Voight said he was stunned as he watched Hoffman turn real New York anger into gold. It was that little accident that gave the movie its rough, gritty, uncertain beat. It showed the energy of the city in a way that no director could have planned. And for decades, people thought it was always written that way. But no, it was Hoffman's quick thought under pressure that showed that chaos can lead to magic. It wasn't the first time that chaos took the lead. Many years later, on the set of The Usual Suspects, things were meant to be very tense. As they stood in a line against the wall, each suspect gave their story like a seasoned thief. This is when Benicio del Toro showed up. Instead of being honest, he started making a mess. The camera would roll every time Del Toro let out a loud, clear fart. Done. Over and over. Over and over. They tried to keep it together, but the cracks were clear. That's Kevin Spacey, Gabriel Byrne, and Stephen Baldwin. They're all broke, laughing, and hiding their faces. As the takes went on, director Bryan Singer got angrier and angrier, but the laughing would not go away. It was supposed to be scary, but the police lineup turned out to be one of the best and most memorable parts of the movie. The group couldn't help but do it, not because that's how it was written. After many years, they all admitted that there wasn't a single take where no one laughed. That silly behavior that wasn't planned made the scene feel more real than anything that had been practiced. Reality can creep into comedies too, even though timing is very important. The scene on Friends was easy to plan. Ross would run up the stairs, and then something would happen behind the scenes. But instead of the normal joke, a dummy was used, instead of David Schwimmer for the fall. Jennifer Aniston had no idea. She was scared to death when she turned around and saw Ross lying on the ground. The scream she let out wasn't an act. It was real fear that cut through the laughter track like glass. The people who saw it loved it. In retrospect, Schwimmer said he thought it was funny that she was so scared. But for Aniston, that moment stuck with her. The people who made it thought it was too good to cut. It turns out that real fear is much more remembered than anything that was written. One thing ties all of these unplanned events together: an insult yelled on a New York street, a fart that ruined a whole day's filming, and an actor screaming in fear. They help you remember that scenes don't always come from the page. They can happen by accident, because of stress, or just by chance. They're still living. They're hard to predict. They also show that there is nothing better than what happens when real life gets in the way of a movie or TV show. You're wrong if you think that a little fear and some laughs are the only things that matter, because the cameras kept rolling after that. And they caught pain. Real pain that goes to the bones. Even the players didn't see it coming. When acting hurt for real. The set of The Godfather was very quiet when the cameras started rolling. Marlon Brando didn't just walk into a scene, he made it his own. He was so scary and heavy that even the biggest men felt like they had to hide in his shadow. Lenny Montana, who was cast as Luca Brasi, was used to being under a lot of stress. He had been a professional wrestler, which meant he loved big groups and fights. But it was a whole different thing to face Brando. Montana froze as he was about to walk up to Don Corleone and say his lines. His voice cracked, his tongue tripped over itself, and his hands got sweaty. The way his words jump around as he pays his thanks can be seen on the screen. That wasn't in the script, though. It wasn't planned or practiced. It was Montana, who was totally shocked by the man in front of him. Coppola saw it happen, but he didn't stop the scene. Instead, he leaned into it. With the cameras still, he let Montana's real fear seep into Luca Brasi's role. Luca is the strength of the Corleone family, so why wouldn't he still be scared when his boss is around? That stuttering changed a small part that wasn't important into something that people will remember. It showed a weak spot in a killer who was normally very tough. In real life, though, not every moment is as harmless as a worried stammer. Things got worse, darker, and more dangerous on the Raging Bull set. It was already known that Robert De Niro could escape into his roles. Rather than just playing Jake LaMotta, he was the real Jake LaMotta, and his obsession hurt the people who were close to him. In a scary scene, De Niro approaches Kathy Moriarty, who plays his real-life wife. When the next thing happened, it went too far. The air was thick with anger. As the cameras were rolling, De Niro slapped her harder than anyone thought he would. In fact, she hit the wall so hard that her head made a really awful sound. That wasn't planned. There was no choreography or action double in that move. That really happened. Everyone in the room could feel the air change as Moriarty stopped moving for a second. She didn't stop, though. She did not yell, "Cut." She didn't move. Instead, she stayed in the moment, her eyes burning and her teeth clenched as she spoke. What Scorsese wanted was for that take to feel raw, ugly, and real, so it stayed in the movie. It did, however, make people wonder how far artists should go to make a scene work. When you watch it now, you can still feel the force of the blow, not just on her skin, but also in the silence that followed. Then there are times when everything goes crazy. When accidents happen that are so bad that they hurt more than just people's pride. As Kurt Russell's character looked across the table at Jennifer Jason Leigh in The Hateful Eight, there was a quiet tension in the cabin. What was going on? There was a beautiful, one-of-a-kind old Martin guitar sitting between them. It was on loan from a museum. Leigh was careful with it every time they practiced because she knew it wasn't a copy. But no one told Kurt Russell. Just as things were getting bad, Russell grabbed the guitar and slammed it against a beam out of anger. At that very moment, a valuable object broke into pieces. It was real for Leigh to be shocked, wide-eyed, and with her mouth open. She played her part, but you could tell she wasn't believing what she was seeing as the scene went on. The team stood still off-camera, shocked by what had just happened. That guitar had been around for 145 years. It didn't make it through Kurt Russell. The museum was so mad that they promised never to give another piece to a movie set again. But that mistake, that split-second choice, led to one of the most real responses you'll ever see on TV or in movies. Only one thing ties these events together. The pain, the nerves, and the damage were all real. The players put their shock and pain into the story, making mistakes into works of art. That kind of fear can't be planned. You can't plan the chill that goes through your body when you see Moriarty's head hit that wall. You also can't make someone feel the way Lee did when she held a piece of history and broke it into pieces. They do more than just make a scene seem real. In these scenes, real people are shown on screen, and sometimes they have to pay a real price for the magic we see. Is this the most intense thing that has ever been caught on camera? No, it's not. Because what comes next isn't just about pain or feelings, it has to do with danger. Actors were in real danger, and sometimes they were just on the edge of fear. Unbearable tension. The scene where they played Russian roulette was already one of the most nerve-wracking parts of making The Deer Hunter. There were two guys at a table with a revolver between them. The room was so quiet that you could hear every breath. However, director Michael Cimino felt that there was still something broken. He wanted people to be scared enough that they thought they might not come out of the scene the same way they came in. He snuck up behind Christopher Walken and told him something that no one else knew. When the cameras went back to Robert De Niro, Walken looked at him and spat in his face. There is a flash of white-hot anger in De Niro's eyes. For a split second, it doesn't look like he's playing at all. His jaw gets tight and his nostrils flare out. Neither the spit nor the anger that De Niro showed was in the script. Later, people on the set said he almost left because he was so angry about being made fun of in front of the whole team. But the take was kept in the movie because Cimino got more than just an act. He got something more real, disturbing, and deep. There was real-life friction between them, and it showed up on screen as one of the most important parts of the movie. This isn't just two characters stuck in a game. It's two actors stuck in a power fight that neither of them planned. You can feel it in your gut as you watch it now. After many years, Quentin Tarantino had the same trouble on the set of Inglourious Bastards. Diane Kruger's character is strangled in a scene that never felt quite real, no matter how many times it was shot. The fear seemed fake, and the despair didn't work. So Tarantino made a movie that caused a lot of debate. He didn't want to hire an actress or stunt double, so he put it upon himself. When the cameras came back on, Tarantino's hands were getting tighter around her neck. They squeezed her for just long enough for her eyes to widen and her breath to stop. It's easy to see how scared she is because her face is red with fear. That wasn't just acting. Her body was responding to real stress and risk. After the fact, Kruger said she agreed because she believed he would not do it again. But faith has its limits. The moment is hard to watch because you can tell she wasn't in charge anymore. That's what makes it so memorable. When the movie came out, the scene caused a lot of controversy. Some people thought it was brilliant and praised Tarantino for going beyond the normal fake violence in Hollywood movies. Some people said it was careless and that he had crossed a line that no director should ever do. No matter what happened, the effect was clear. A scene that was so exciting that people couldn't stop thinking about it after the credits were over. There is also a different kind of fear that comes from being high above a set and waiting for gravity to take over. Alan Rickman played the bad guy in Die Hard until the very end. Hans Gruber dies when he falls from the top of Nakatomi Plaza after being beaten and lied to. Rickman hung over a big cushion while wearing a harness for filming. He was told that they would drop him on the count of 3 so that he could get ready. But Rickman didn't know that they were going to let go early. When the count of 1 came up, they let go of him, and he fell before he was ready. It wasn't an act when he looked completely scared and flailed his arms around as he tried to catch himself. That's Alan Rickman realizing he was dropped 30 feet without being told. He later said that what happened to him made him scared, and after that day, he didn't trust the stunt team very much. The risk paid off, though. That shot is one of the most famous evil deaths in movie history. You can see real fear in his eyes, without any filters or preparation. What ties all of these times together is how much stronger they feel because they were sudden. Not only were De Niro and Walken joking around, but also Kruger wasn't the only one trying to gasp for air. Rickman wasn't the only one who looked scared as he fell. At these points, real feelings came to the surface, and the actors quit acting and just responded. It's clear when you see them. If you look closely, you can see that Walken spits, Kruger is struggling to breathe, and Rickman's face lights up with fear as the ground rushes up to meet him. These moments hit you harder because they are real. Like real people, they're messy, scary, and human in a way that can't be fully replicated through practice. These scenes show that movies are alive. There's always a chance that something real will come through, no matter how well the set is controlled or how many times they repeat a take. If it does happen, it changes everyone who sees it, not just the players. Because deep down, you know when someone isn't lying anymore. But fear and anger can be very strong. What do you do when something unexpected turns out to be funny? If the actors can't stop laughing, even though the scene is meant to be serious, what do you do? When chaos takes over, even the most serious scenes can change in ways that no one saw coming. Comedy, born in the moment. It's not always fear or pain that makes a scene memorable. Sometimes it's when the players can't help but laugh while the cameras keep rolling. On the set of Fast and Furious 6, where the team was arguing and insulting each other, things were supposed to be very tense. But Ludacris had an idea behind the scenes that would ruin the whole thing. Putting his ear to Dwayne Johnson, he said something that made him want to say it. Johnson turned around, looked Tyrese in the eye, and said the insult about his forehead without notice. Tyrese stopped moving and looked around in shock. He then spat his drink all over the table. That wasn't in the plan. That wasn't practiced. Still, it seemed so normal that the director chose to leave it in. The whole group laughed out loud, and the mood in the room changed. That little bit of mischief not only livened up the scene, but it also set the tone for the rest of the series. It was a reminder that even in a world of fast cars and impossible stunts, the actors' chemistry was what drove the story. In This Is the End, the same crazy energy showed up again, and Rihanna made Michael Cera's wild party behavior even worse. In the scene where Cera hits her in the behind, he asked her ahead of time if it was okay to do it in real life. Rihanna said yes, but only if she could hit him back, which she did. After a few takes, she hit him so hard that his head spun, and he had to rest in his trailer. You can see the shock on his face as it happens, a mix of sorrow and respect, as she walks away without a word. That little back and forth wasn't just funny. It made the opening party scene of the movie feel even crazier and open to anything. You could tell that Cera wasn't just acting to be stunned. He really was. This made his over-the-top performance feel even more real. The movie Billy Madison, on the other hand, took its comedy a little too seriously. Adam Sandler didn't follow the script at all during the now-famous basketball scene. Rather than being careful, he threw each ball as hard as he could, straight at the kids with no regard for their safety. They screamed, jumped, and ran for cover one by one, but Sandler kept going. You can see real tears on those kids' faces, not fake ones. Parents who were on set were mad when they saw how hard he was hitting them. But Sandler said that was the point of the scene. And in the end, you can feel how funny it all is. An adult man throwing dodgeballs at scared kids while everyone else tries not to laugh. What made it work was that rough, unpleasant edge. The one thing these events all have in common is that they were strange. They weren't planned out or finished. They were short bursts of chaos that no one planned. But as soon as they happened, everyone knew they were gold. Watching people try and fail to keep a straight face is contagious. As you watch, it tells you that the actors are still just people, even when they're on a well-run set. They can be caught off guard and act out of character. In those times, you really feel like you're part of the joke and seeing something you weren't meant to. Even though they're funny, these events don't always end well. They go from funny to painful at times, leaving more than just laughs in their wake. The cameras then caught real screams, tears, and pure pain, showing that comedy isn't the only thing that can catch players off guard. Physical comedy. That hurt. It's not always about timing for comedy. Sometimes it's about pain, and the players have to grit their teeth and let it happen. Everyone who worked on The Year-Old Virgin knew that the scene where the chest was waxed would be very painful. As hair was pulled off of Steve Carell's character, he was meant to scream and move around. But no one knew how real it would feel until the cameras started rolling. No makeup or fake hair was used to make it look real. It was Carell's real chest, and every yank was real. Judd Apatow insisted it happened that way because he thought real shock would get the best response. And he was right. Carell's face twisted in real pain as the wax was pulled off. You can hear the crack in his voice and the sobs he holds back between laughs. That's pain you can't fake. As they watched him get peeled alive in front of them, his co-stars couldn't help but respond. Some laughed nervously, while others winced and looked away. For the scene to work, there was only one take possible. There was no way to start over with his chest. It paid off. It was one of the most talked about and remembered parts of his career, and not just because it was funny. It hurt so badly that you could feel it through the screen. But when you're watching live TV, you can't just start over either. There are also times when the chaos of live comedy makes actors lose it without notice. It was planned for James Franco to spray fake blood on Leslie Jones as part of a funny scene on Saturday Night Live. But the tube didn't work right, so the blood didn't splash around and hurt anyone. Instead, it shot right into her open mouth. She stopped moving for a half second and swallowed hard as her eyes grew big. She had to decide right then whether to break character and spit it out or keep going as if nothing had happened. In her thoughts, she said later, she was trying very hard not to throw up on live TV. She managed to swallow the blood, smile tightly, and finish the drawing without skipping a beat. She said that the taste stayed with her long after the cameras stopped rolling when she told the story again. It wasn't just the accident that made that moment remarkable. It was her ability to stay calm under pressure, to laugh through her stomach ache while the crowd laughed. And the fact that they're more than just physical jokes makes them so powerful. They're small glimpses of real human suffering that are hidden in jokes. The screams from Carell were not only funny but also real and painful to watch, which is why they worked. Jones's quiet resolve to stay strong, even though she felt like giving up, showed a strength that you don't usually see behind the jokes. They both put themselves through pain for the scene because they knew that the cameras would catch every moment and that people would never forget it. Funny and sad things can happen at the same time in these scenes. That's what hurts people the most. Sometimes what makes them laugh the most. This is what makes these times last. The willingness to go a little further than anyone expected and come out on top. That sharp edge that makes something funny into something memorable is there when you watch them. Are you ready for what comes next? If you thought that pain and laughter were the only things left to find, you're wrong. Because sometimes the cameras don't just catch chaos. They catch mistakes that are so big and shocking that they can change the whole show in one take. Accidents that became art. There was more than just strikes and blood in Raging Bull. The way Jake LaMotta tore himself apart piece by piece was about killing yourself. In one unforgettable moment, Robert De Niro brought that idea to life in a way that no one saw coming. When things got tense in front of a mirror, he swore at and punched himself. But no one knew that the mirror wasn't a fake that could be taken away. He broke through the real, thick glass with his hand, cutting deep into his skin. Even though his blood started to boil right away, he didn't move. He stayed in character by looking at himself with his chest heaving and his knuckles red as if there was nothing else in the world. Cut was never called by Martin Scorsese. He let the scene play out because he knew they had caught something real and scary that perfectly showed LaMotta's downward slide. The broken mirror turned into a picture of a man who couldn't stop hurting himself, and Scorsese kept the take in the final cut, making one of the scariest scenes in the movie out of something that could have been a costly mistake. But killing oneself doesn't always happen quietly. It can come with a punch that stops the heart. Sylvester Stallone wanted the final fight in Rocky IV with Dolph Lundgren to be very rough. He told Lundgren to hit him hard and not hold back. Lundgren paid attention. During one fight, Lundgren hit Stallone in the chest with a punch that was so strong it knocked him out. After a few hours, Stallone started having trouble breathing. He had swelling around his heart, so they rushed him to the hospital. He had to stay in special care for more than a week. The doctors told him that the punch was so strong that it caused the kind of injuries that happen in car accidents. But Stallone didn't feel bad about it. Instead, he used it to change the way the fight went. You can feel the risk, the exhaustion, and the real pain in every hit as you watch it now. Later, Stallone would say that he didn't realize how far his body could go, but he never felt bad about pushing himself to that point. People saw Rocky not only as a boxer, but also as a man who was willing to risk everything for what he believed in after that one punch. And sometimes the smallest, least expected events can cause chaos. In The Usual Suspects, a scene that was meant to be tense and under control turned into something completely different. Peter Green meant to flick a cigarette at Stephen Baldwin's chest just enough to make a point during a conversation. But he missed, and the cigarette hit Baldwin right in the eye. Baldwin's face changes in an instant from cocky confidence to sharp anger, and you can see his jaw tightening as he tries to stay in character. It's clear, though, that he's very angry. That moment of real-life anger added a dangerous edge to the scene, making it seem like the players or even the characters could lose it at any time. Bryan Singer, the director, loved how unpredictable it was and wouldn't reshoot it. That little accident gave the scene a rough, jumbled feel that went well with the movie's mood. These scenes show that great performances don't always have perfect routines or well-thought-out plans. The broken glass, the poorly timed punch, or the flying cigarette are sometimes the things that stick with you the most, because that's when you stop seeing actors play. That's the magic behind the video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated with more amazing content. Your support keeps the stories going and helps this channel grow. But don't stop here. There's more to explore. Click on the next video appearing on your screen and dive deeper into the world of stories, entertainment, and inspiration. Every view, click, and comment helps keep the magic alive. Let's keep this journey going together. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep watching, stay curious, and enjoy the ride.